Friday morning. It's 15 minutes after 8. And you know what we're doing? We're going to film school. Bringing in film study professor, my good friend Joe Fortunato on board with us. He's kind enough to join us on Fridays. And, of course, him and I, and we'll talk about this in a couple of minutes, we're getting together tomorrow afternoon and taking film school on the road at Jilly's. We'll give you some details in just a couple of moments. But good morning, Mr. Fortunato, and thanks for joining us again this morning. And you're going to bring up a real good movie that really keyed a comeback from a famous actor for us.
Yeah, good morning, Ray. Good morning, everybody. And you are right indeed. The film actually two comebacks, which I'll kind of talk about here in a moment. But we are going to look at Pulp Fiction from 1994. It was released October 14th, 1994. Directed and written by Quentin Tarantino. Stars more people than I can even list off here, but Samuel L. Jackson, John Travolta, Bruce Willis, Uma Thurman, Tim Roth, Ving Rhames, Amanda Plummer, Christopher Walken, and more. So it's quite a bit. In fact, there were two Oscar winners in this cast, Christopher Walken and Quentin Tarantino, and 5 Oscar nominees. Travolta, Jackson, Thurman, Roth, and Keitel, who I didn't even mention. It had 7 Oscar nominations, including Best Picture and Best Actor for Travolta. And it won for Original Screenplay. So that's Quentin Tarantino getting his Oscar. This was Samuel L. Jackson's only Oscar-nominated role in his very storied career. The accolades keep coming. In 2007, the AFI, American Film Institute, listed it as the 94th greatest movie of all time. It's one of the more recent. I mean, I know it's, we're going on 30 plus years here, but still one of the more recent films on the best 100 films. In fact, Entertainment Weekly called it the number 1 new classics. And I don't remember exactly how they termed that, but I agree with that. It is definitely a new classic. The film, or I'm sorry, the line, famous line, you know what they call a quarter pounder with cheese in Paris? They call it a Royale with cheese. That was voted number 81, I should say, in the 100 greatest movie lines by Premiere Magazine. The film only cost $8 million to make. I know sometimes people hear that and go, only. But in the film world, that is minuscule. The initial budget was even lower until Bruce Willis was added to the cast. And when we talk about comebacks, we're going to talk about Travolta. That's the main one here. But it was actually Bruce Willis because he had a string of kind of domestic flops and was kind of losing his steam at the box office. So $5 million went to pay the actor and actresses' salaries. The film was already profitable, and it went on to gross $200 million in the box office. So pretty good return on its investment at $8 million to make $200 million at the box office. The largest chunk of that budget, almost $150,000, went to creating the famous Jack Rabbit Slim set. For those who know the film, it's a 50s style diner. It's a very cool set. And here's another little twist in the. There's a lot of connections in what people call the Tarantino universe. But Vic Vega, one of the characters in Reservoir Dogs, is Vincent Vega. That's John Travolta's character. Is Vincent Vega's brother in this film? Now, it doesn't come out in the film, but there was a deleted scene that confirms that. So it's canon that they were related. So that is the same universe. Interestingly, Pulp Fiction and Shawshank Redemption opened on the same date. And they were both nominated for Academy Awards and all kinds of stuff. And both movies kind of started slow and gained cult status in the following year. So a very interesting trajectory for those films. You mentioned John Travolta, and this is sort of almost his second comeback film because just a few years earlier, he did Look Who's Talking, which is was a popular but, kind of fluffy comedy. Now, the interesting thing is he did that with Bruce Willis. Now, Bruce Willis provided the voice, but the two of them were in Look Who's Talking in 1989, just a few years before Pulp Fiction. And Pulp Fiction really did, as you indicated, revive Travolta's career.
Film school with Joe Fortunato. Joe, dig into the Travolta side because, one, this was a really unique comeback role for him. Opened those doors down the road, and Tarantino took a shot in bringing Travolta in. So, talk about the idea of bringing Travolta into this movie.
Yeah, we'll talk about casting in a moment. But Travolta, got the role, and originally Tarantino wanted him to play Vincent Vega more or less his normal appearance, at least as we had come to know Travolta at that time. But Travolta, he created that iconic look of Vincent Vega with sort of the long, stringy hair and the cigarette. That was his idea. So he wanted to play against type, I guess, if you want to call it that. Mm-hmm. And Tarantino approved the character, and it's more or less become iconic as we've said at this point. So many people were considered for that role. In fact, one of the more interesting ones is James Gandolfini. Tony Soprano himself was considered for Vincent Vega, but he actually recommended his friend John Travolta. There's a kind of an interesting thing there. Daniel Day-Lewis wanted the role of Vincent Vega, but Tarantino turned him down in favor of Travolta. So, Travolta really does have Quentin Tarantino to thank for the Travolta Renaissance, if you will. Some more casting things. Tarantino wrote the character of Winston the Wolf, especially for Harvey Keitel. It's a great role, as fans of the movies know. Sylvester Stallone was briefly considered for the role of Butch, which eventually went to Bruce Willis. Some of the other names for Jules, who was Samuel L. Jackson, Lawrence Fishburne, Eddie Murphy, Charles Dutton was considered. For Mia Wallace, went to Uma Thurman, Virginia Madsen, Marissa Tomei, Patricia Arquette, Jennifer Beals. Now, Jennifer Beals actually comes up sort of in an interesting way here. At the end of the film, she gets a special thanks credit, and that's because she kind of helped out Tarantino early on. He was actually sleeping on her couch before he was a famous writer-director. One other thing I want to point out in terms of I don't know if this is sort of casting or story or whatever, but the scene where Marvin, the young man, gets his head shot off in the back of the car, and people who haven't seen the film said, "Oh, that sounds horrific," and it is, but it's also kind of done comedically, which is a lot of the things in this film. That is played by Phil Lamar, who I went to college with. Phil is a college friend and pal of mine, and whenever I'm teaching classes, I always tell my students, "Yeah, my friend got his head blown off in a movie." So that's kind of fun, and it's and today people might see the recent Capital One commercials that has John Travolta as Santa and also Samuel L. Jackson as himself, and so there's a Pulp Fiction connection in the pop culture now, and there are references to the film in those commercials.
It's a fun movie. And I know Joe is, the head blown off and all these type of things, but it's fun, it's action, it's a little intense. It's why it's so good. It's a great movie. Pulp Fiction today, as we go to film school with Joe Fortunato. Now,
I will add one more thing before we move on.
Go ahead, Joe.
One of the sort of the mythology of the film is what is in the mysterious glowing briefcase of Marcellus Wallace, and people have speculated for 30 years about that. Was it Elvis's golden suit? Was it something else? The most persistent theory is that it's Marcellus Wallace's soul. Now, that's a kind of an esoteric thing, but the story goes that when the devil takes a person's soul, he removes it through the back of the head. And it's noted that, and this is some devilish lore found somewhere in the Bible, but it's notable that when we see the back of Marcellus's head, he has a Band-Aid covering the precise spot on the back of his head / neck, where tradition supposedly says that's where the devil removes his soul. So that's kind of where that rumor / theory was born.
I love that. I also like the fact that and I don't know if it was specifically for Travolta or what, Joe, but Travolta dancing in the movie because, early in his career, dancing was his quote thing, right? And 3 of his monster hits, he was a dancer, and he did, I guess you could call it a dance in Pulp Fiction.
Well, now you've told me 2 stories. I got to tell real quick. One is that Uma Thurman was really nervous about, she has a scene that she dances with Travolta, the scene you're mentioning there. And she was really nervous because of that. I mean, Travolta's a known dancer. And so she had a hard time doing that scene. And he finally says, "Just shut up and twist." and of course she did. And then just on another personal story, one of my early days in Hollywood, I was, and this is before Pulp Fiction, so it was sort of before the Travolta Renaissance.
Yeah.
But I worked as a DJ, as a party DJ. I spun tunes at parties and stuff.
Yeah.
And I was at a beach party, and I won't go into all the details because that's too long. But the short version of it is that Travolta was at this party, and it was a 70s themed party, so that's important to know. And people were dressed in 70s sort of garb, and Travolta had on a brown leisure suit. Now, keep in mind, he's famous for his white leisure suit, but he had a brown leisure suit, and people kept begging him to dance, and they kind of cajoled me, and I didn't really want to upset him, but they kind of cajoled me into playing "Staying Alive" from Saturday Night Fever. And so I was DJing when Travolta, who was then almost forgotten in his career, was dancing to "Staying Alive" at a 70s party on the beach in LA.
So in your way, you had a role in the revival of John Travolta.
Yes, I will claim that. Sure, why not?
Well, listen, Joe and I are getting back together tomorrow. We've been so looking forward to this. We'll be back down at Jilly's. 12 o'clock noon, we will start. The buffet starts at 11 o'clock at Jilly's. But, Joe, we're going to have our own twist on a holiday movie tomorrow. You're doing film school, and I've gone back and watched this movie twice in the last week to get ready for tomorrow, but you're going to do Die Hard.
That's right. We're bringing Fortunato Film School live to Jilly's, as we've done a couple of times in the past. That's tomorrow. You're right, Saturday. Brunch starts at 11, as you mentioned. The film starts at noon. And it's kind of interesting that, and we didn't plan this, but, Bruce Willis has a little... not a little, but a part in Pulp Fiction today, and we're going to bring him over to his defining role as John McClane in Die Hard tomorrow. And for those who don't know how this works, Ray and I will talk a little bit about the film, kind of like we do here on Fridays, but then we will do a screening of the entire film, and I will do live commentary as it goes on, sharing stories, trivia, movie mistakes that we see on screen. And then afterwards, we'll discuss it, Q&A, kind of like a little book club or something. And it's a lot of fun. People learn stuff. You'll have fun. Jilly's brunch is delicious. And it's only $5. And by the way, if you get your ticket for $5 and buy brunch, Jilly will apply that $5 to the brunch. So essentially, the movie and the event is free. You're just paying for the brunch if you so choose. And like I said, it's a lot of fun. I, too, have been doing, some research and stuff this week, kind of prepping, and I've got some fun stories to share, so I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, I can't wait. And I got to tell you, it's really grown. Joe and I did this for the first time. Gosh, it's almost been 2 years ago now, but it's about a year and a half. We did Raiders of the Lost Ark, and then we did Psycho, and this past summer we did Jaws, and really with Jaws, there wasn't an empty seat in the house for Jaws, and Joe does a wonderful job. I can't wait for tomorrow with Die Hard. So, like Joe said,
and you want to get your tickets today if you can, because you never know. I mean, they do accept walk-ups if there's room, but you never know. And to get tickets, you can go to Jilly's Music Room's website, and there's a link on the calendar page, or you can go to Facebook and search for Fortunato Film School Live, and that has an event page and links to get your tickets, and we look forward to seeing everybody there tomorrow.
Yeah, I can't wait, Joe. Listen, thanks for getting up with me this morning. I'll let you get back to your Die Hard studies, and I'll see you tomorrow morning. Or tomorrow. Okay. Well, I'll see you around 11:30 tomorrow.
Yep. Look forward to it. See you, everybody.
All right, my friend. Joe Fortunato, film study professor, kind enough to join us on Fridays on the show as we get into film school. Stephanie?